This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, man.
I get that a lot. I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
It is. Hey, folks, listen. You ever on a golf course and you have a 3-foot putt? I've been there for a lot of money. No, forget about the money, but there's a 3-foot putt. But you remember you missed another 3-foot putt 2 weeks before and it's on your mind? You got to deal with it. Gentleman in the studio is about to help us. He is Dr. Jarrod Spencer, a sports psychologist who helps us be the best we can be, gets into the mind of the athlete. Good to see you, doctor.
It's great to be with you.
What is up with us that we play, as I like to say, because I teach public speaking, I have a doctor in a different field, but we're both doctors of the mind.
Of the mind.
I often tell my clients when I'm teaching public speaking, you're playing the wrong movie in your head about something bad that happened, you're replaying it. That's a lot of what sports psychology is?
Well, it is, because sports are emotional. And there's a part of the brain called the amygdala that's responsible. The amygdala. It's responsible for like intense emotion. And so what happens is if you miss that 3-foot putt,
yes,
and it was crushing, there's a part of the brain where it gets seared, which basically says, I don't want to experience that again. Therefore, I really try to learn from that. It's like you don't touch the hot stove twice. Once you learned it, you got it. And so in sports, a lot of times the negative emotions that we experience can come back if we're in that situation again. Managing that is a lot of where sports psychology steps in.
So let me ask you something. Little kids, right? You have boys who are 7 and one turning 9, right? Yep. And I watch them play. There's, you know, whether it's touch football, not touch flag football, or t-ball or soccer, whatever it is, and something bad happens. What I mean bad is it doesn't work out for them.
Sure.
Whatever it is. Or they're shooting the foul shot in a big game, and you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And you tell them, hey, listen, you played the best you could. Doesn't really matter. Is that true?
To a degree. How you're saying it really matters. I mean, the tonality, they'll read between the lines. Is it okay that I lost? Does that change the emotional temperament at home? Does my father love me and accept me unconditionally no matter what? And so I think at that age, really the focus ought to be on the technical. The more you focus on the technique and not the outcome, the better the performance tends to be.
Stuff stays with you. I was 16 years of age, and I know my staff hates when I do this, because I do make it too much about me. It just comes naturally. But here's what happens. I'm 16 years old. We're playing for the state championship in the Parochial A football league where I was. It was big where I was. And I was a receiver, but I was a place kicker on the team, and I was kicking a winning field goal. Well, at least in my mind it was. And this is a kid I grew up with who was a quarterback. He was my holder. He grabbed me by the face master. There were 10 seconds left, and he grabbed me and he said, you better make this or we lose the championship. Now, that wasn't very motivating.
Not at all.
And I will tell you, I missed the kick, and I can remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
What is that? You're 16.
Yeah. Because at 16, we don't necessarily have the emotional skills developed to manage a lot of those situations. So sports today has put our young people, even younger and younger, in these big time situations when yet they don't have those skill sets to really manage it. So if they succeed, well, that's all well and good, and that's great.
Right.
And we hear about that.
But
what about those kids
that
that are the
field goal,
opposite?
12,000 people in the fans.
Yeah.
12,000 fans in those stands.
Yeah.
For the Parochial Championship.
Yeah.
I remember it.
Yes, and you'll likely remember it forever. Because those early, intense emotional experiences shape us, which is why, because sports, from the time you played in that game till now, has gotten bigger and more extensive,
Stakes
more
higher?
money. Oh, the stakes are so high. It's incredible. But yet, the 16-year-olds are still underneath that helmet 16-year-olds. And they may not have the skill set or the community, or the support, the psychological wherewithal to manage that when it doesn't go well.
How do you manage it? Tell us about your work and how you help those young people.
Sure. We have got to teach our young people emotional regulation.
Oh, you were a
skills.
wrestler?
I was.
Well, would you wrestle at?
I wrestled at Phillipsburg High School.
What was your weight?
189.
You were 189?
I was.
And by the way, did you have to cut to get down to that, or you were a natural 189?
I cut a little bit, but not a whole lot.
I know guys who are like 220 walking around. They wrestled at 189.
Sure.
Like, that's a whole nother story.
Nope.
But maybe it's not another story. I don't really know. There's psychological issues associated with that, no?
Tons of psychological issues with that. I mean, when you start going sport by sport and begin to break it down at the high school, college, pro level, there's so much involved there. And so many different layers to it. It just depends upon which way you want to go with it.
Okay, so you're working with a kid.
Yeah.
And do you also have to work with the coach? Because I remember my coach, Coach Joe Marino, you remember the nasty, rotten things you said to me in high school. You never amount to anything. Your mouth is much bigger than your game. Blah. You remember, Coach. Do you have to work with the coach as well? How could you work with the kid without the coach?
It depends. If you're working with the kid privately in a private practice,
right,
then if they sign certain release forms, sure, you can talk to a coach. Sometimes they don't want that. Sometimes it's the coach who hires me, brings me on to work with the whole team, and then we've got to manage.
Is that you there?
That's me.
Is that what team is that?
The University of Maryland wrestling team.
By the way, real quick, go back to your point. Who else do you do this work for? Name some clients.
Well, I can't name individual clients because of privacy, but in terms of teams, universities, Lafayette College, Lehigh, University of Maryland.
I'm picking up a pattern. Okay, certain sports. Go ahead. So go ahead. Sometimes the coach will bring you in and say, do my whole team. Yes.
And so, for example, a coach would bring me in. I would do some one-on-one sessions with some of their key guys, helping them make sure that their mind is clear. The message I send is, if your mind is clearer, your performance is going to be better. And so I meet one-on-one with them, or I'll teach at the beginning of practice or end of practice the athletes different skill sets that they can begin to use.
To clear your head?
To clear your head. Clear your mind. The preconscious mind.
Come on. Give me more.
The preconscious mind is the back burner. You know, we've all heard of this before, you know, your conscious mind, people are constantly listening to this program. But the preconscious mind is the back burner. It's that place where you store all the things that we can't get to right now, but you can easily recall it. Like as soon as you put your head on the pillow or drive in the car, all the things we have to get to later on today. When the preconscious mind is flooded with a lot of stuff, trauma, drama, academics, relationships, all that stuff. History. It's all there because time has no meaning in the preconscious mind. So it could have been a big shot from last year, but it reminds you when you're in that situation this year. If that preconscious mind isn't clearer, an individual's performance is not likely to be as good.
Were you influenced at all by Arrotella's Golf is Not a Game of Perfect?
No.
No, you know who Arrotella is?
Sure.
Okay, I got to ask you something, because Tiger Woods.
Yes.
Could even you help him?
I think so.
Or is it, no, come on, seriously.
Sure.
As we do this program, is he not a broken, incredible athlete, the whole bit?
Sure.
But I mean, at a certain point you say, all right, it's not going to happen anymore.
Sure. Look, I don't know Tiger, I've never met him personally, but I think everybody can be helped. And so obviously I'm biased to this path, which is why in sports, it's so important for me to advocate for this path. Let's look at Tiger Woods, for example. Okay, when he had his fall from grace, prior to that, we said he's the mentally toughest athlete on the planet, right?
Yep.
But then what I actually described mental toughness is more what Tiger said. Like afterwards, he began to work on it, talk about things. He actually got some help. He was humbled. And so these are all things that were out there publicly.
But they never won.
He never won, but at the end of the day, it's not really about that. Look, I get the sports side of it. I get it.
For him, for my kid, it's not. For Tiger Woods, it better be.
No. There's more to it. And so take Deion Sanders, for example.
Real quick, go ahead.
Sure. Deion Sanders almost drove his car off a cliff. He thought he had it all, but it was empty inside. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. And the more you talk with athletes at these higher levels, they would tell you privately behind the scenes, hey, look, there's more to it. It's, how do I feel emotionally? What's going on? How's my marriage? How's my kids? How's my balance? How's my life? Those things matter. The more those things are in sync, the clearer the mind is, the better the performance.
You're good, doctor. Dr. Jarrod Spencer, a sports psychologist. I'm going to talk to you when we get out of the studio about my putting game and how when I'm putting for a very important match, you know, I remember that field goal I missed for the state championship. There should be no correlation, but there is. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll solve it.
Really, today? Thank you, doctor. I'm Steve Adubato with clearly a lot of issues that we'll try to resolve on this show. Stay with us.